Hey guys, wanted to make a quick video and kind of go over a couple of things since we didn't have a ton of time on Wednesday. First of all, I wanted to quickly recap how to get started with Bootstrap. A couple students asked me about that if you missed class or something like that. So I wanted to do a quick recap of that to hopefully help you get started on the right page if you're struggling to even get started with the assignment. Secondly, I found an issue with some of the stuff that we did Wednesday as I was kind of working on it today, trying to add some new stuff, and I found something that I wanted to go back and change the way we did something. So I want to go over that because I think it'll help you out a lot, as well as kind of help understand positioning a little bit better. And then thirdly, I just wanted to kind of show sort of what the next steps that I would take would be on the assignments, hopefully help you out if you're struggling with what to do next. So first of all, to talk about Bootstrap again real quick, the website for Bootstrap is getbootstrap.com. So if you go there, if you go to this getting started link, that's going to be the most help. Don't worry about downloading it. It's much easier to load it with the CDN, and they give you this handy link. You only need this first one. The second one is like an optional theme that adds a little bit more styling that we don't really want. It adds like some gradients to buttons and stuff like that. The third is the JavaScript. You can include that if you want to. If you try and do like any drop-down buttons or some other fancier interactions, you might want to include the JavaScript. That's required for some things, but I wouldn't worry about it for now unless you're trying to get real fancy. For now, I would just grab this, just copy this whole line, and then stick that in your head of your index. Make sure you put it above your own style sheet, so put it right here at the top of your head under your title. The reason for that, again, going back to multiple CSS rules, if we have our personal style sheet loaded after the Bootstrap style sheet, we're going to be more likely to override things because of the last rule with CSS. So then from there, you're going to reference very heavily the CSS page here, which kind of will go over really broad things that you can do with Bootstrap. And then also this components page. Usually I open both of them in a new tab, so I have each in a tab because you kind of have to go back and forth a little bit between the two. But to summarize Bootstrap in one sentence, it gives you a bunch of predefined styles that you can use certain HTML patterns with certain classes to get those styles implemented by default, and then you can add your own styles to those components to further customize. So for an example, say buttons. So we're on the CSS page, we go down to buttons, gives us the button tags. We can use either an A or a button or an input element. Do this as an example. So again, here with just a simple link, we've got it styled like a button. So we've got some rounded corners, we've got a border, we've got a background on hover, that kind of thing. Looks really nice. We're definitely going to use these in our project. You can copy any one of these little HTML snippets. So you can use the A. We haven't talked about the button element, but it's very similar to an A. It's an HTML5 element. So you can just copy this and paste it in your code, and as long as you have that Bootstrap file loaded in your head, that link will be styled like a button like you see here. And then there's even extra, pretty much all Bootstrap components, they'll have extra little classes that you can add that will kind of style them a little bit differently or maybe add a new feature. So for example, this A, all we have to do is give it a class of button and then button default. And then if you look, there's also different options for other types of buttons with different classes. So we can change button default is the default. It's just, plain. There's button primary that has more of a blue background. Button success for like a success button that's got a green background. These types of things. It's really nice that they've given them pretty semantic meanings because you can restyle them, you can change the colors, but they give you these classes to sort of have different classes of buttons, if you will. You can also change the button size by adding a class. So here they just say add button large, button small, or button XS for additional sizes. So I've done this. I used buttons here for this like update info and view activity log. So to show you an example of where I used that, right here, I went ahead and used the HTML5 button one. They've got button, button small, and button default. Without the button small, they're a little too big, compared to, what it looks like here. I wanted them to be around the same size, so I used button small to achieve that. So, again, for example, the header, that's in components. And if you go to navbar in your menu over here on the right, you can read all of this if you want, but it talks about how to do a navbar. So like here's a really basic example. So this is what their navbar looks like. It's got drop downs and everything, which aren't going to work unless you include your JavaScript file. But you could copy all of this HTML right here, and without any additional CSS that you have to write, you would get this navbar as you see it right here. What we wanted to do, we ended up using kind of a combination of things. So over here on the nav, I click fix to top because that's what we wanted in our nav bar. So I basically just copied this HTML here. Basically, you just use class navbar, navbar default, and navbar-fixed-top. So I did that. Then if you go back up to the top of kind of the navbar section, it talks about this brand image. That's what I used for the little Facebook image here. So it talks about, here you've got, you don't have to copy these two parts because we've already got that. But you add this div class navbar header, and then an A with navbar brand, and then it gives you the image tag right there. And then you just add the source to the file that you've downloaded. There's a link in the assignment on Blackboard to where you can download different Facebook images. So that's where I got the actual Facebook icon. Forms, we also use the navbar form for our search up here. Basically, you just copy this and add it to your, I basically just did this verbatim, copy and pasted this right here into my navbar after the image. As you can see right up here. So here's my, nav. This looks like a lot of stuff, but it's all just copy and pasted from Bootstrap. So we've got our navbar default, navbar fixed top. We've got the container. We've got the navbar header right here with our brand image. And then we've got here our form. This is a little strangely, there we go. We've got our form right here with our navbar form. I also added this navbar left class, which I'll show in the documentation in a minute, but it basically just moves it over to the left. Got the form group with the search Facebook placeholder on this. And I've got the button submit. Another extra thing that I did was added this glyphicon, which is a Bootstrap feature. So if you go up here to glyphicons, it shows you all the ones that you have available to use. And then down here at the bottom, it says how to use and gives you this example. Really, you just use the span and you give it two classes. One is class glyphicon, and the second is glyphicon dash, and then whatever glyphicon you want to use. If you go up to one of these, so say you want to use this sunglasses icon, you could just copy all this text and paste this in your class property, and that would add the glyphicon and glyphicon dash sunglasses, which would use that icon. So anyway, so that's what we've used to do this up here. I also did the, after that, so there's also a navbar links. So if we go back down to navbar, it's not nav links, no. Somewhere it talks about navbar links. I think maybe it's just up at the top. To do it. Yeah, so like right here, it's got a UL navbar nav with our links. They're just LIs. Oh, and then here component alignment shows how to use the navbar left and navbar right to move stuff to the right or the left. So I moved my links to the right. So I said a UL, navbar nav, navbar right, which forces that whole UL to go to the right of the navbar, which is kind of what we wanted to do in copying Facebook. Then again, I used the glyphicons for these as well. And then I styled these a little bit differently as well. So again, Bootstrap just gives you, the base components that then you can add additional styles to. So for instance, I targeted class navbar and changed the background color to Facebook blue. I repositioned the Facebook logo a little bit with position relative and moved it up a bit. Also set the height just to kind of make it a little bit more square. Move the form around a little bit, etc. Then I took the navbar nav, li, a, and then span, so I'm targeting the glyphicons inside of the links of the navbar nav, and I just changed the color and changed the font size to make them a little bit bigger. So that's how I got the icons over here to look similar to how Facebook's do. Didn't quite finish, could add this one if you really wanted to, but you get the idea of what we've done. So on Wednesday we kind of went over, did the cover image, the profile, all this stuff. We kind of stopped working on these links here, and as I was kind of continuing to work on it today, just to sort of for fun, I guess, and just to kind of thinking about what I wanted to go over with you on Monday, I sort of discovered an interesting issue. So in my HTML, after the, we've got our 9-column here, and then our extra 3 over here, that's going to be where our ads go. So after this 9-column with all of our sort of header stuff, we need to do the intro, like about us here on the left, and then like the main content section here. So this is another pretty obvious column layout, right? So, if we've got the 12 columns kind of here for this section, so we're kind of doing subcolumns. So we've got like a 3-column width here, or maybe I think I did 4 and 8. So I added this in my HTML. So here we've got our 9 columns. We've got our cover stuff, so our cover image, and as well as all the profile image and stuff. And then down here, I just created a new row, which is going to create kind of a new row in our column layout. Gave it a 4-column div, and then an 8-column div, again, out of 12. Just to kind of, start creating this next section. What was interesting is this content was way down here. It was pushed way down. I was like, that's interesting. I wonder why it's not, just right after those elements. So I kind of used Inspector to look at it. And if you go back up, look at this cover, like the height here is okay. I specifically set the height on that. If you get down to here, so I gave this div an idea of cover overlay, but basically it's the items, the profile image, the name, and the buttons, all of these kinds of things that are sort of overlaying the cover photo. We use a div for this, and then each of these items here, we use position relative, and we move them up quite a bit. So we use like position relative, and we use top -140 pixels to take this profile image and move it way up so that it covers up the cover image. So if we took out the top, we can see that really it would be down here. If you remember when I did the lecture and talked about the different positioning, something really interesting is that when you do relative position, it actually leaves space where the element used to be. So it sort of leaves like a ghost element where the element originally was, and then it also moves the element relative to that original position. So it leaves the element in the normal flow and kind of leaves that space. when you switch it to position absolute, it actually like removes the element from the normal flow, and it positions it absolutely, and it doesn't leave space where it used to be. It'll create new space for it, you know, wherever you put it with position absolute. So again, that's kind of difficult, but I think that we see this here. Basically, you know, we've got this div, and it's got a height because of the image height. This is the div where those images are, and we've moved them up, but we haven't gotten rid of this space where they used to be. There's still all this empty space where those elements would be if we hadn't positioned them relative. So like if we removed these, you know, top values, we see, and this kind of makes sense now, that this cover overlay div has this height to it. We've just kind of manually taken these things and moved them up. So the more I thought about this, I think we kind of went about this incorrectly. I went about this incorrectly. I think rather than positioning these so drastically with relative, the better thing to do would be to position this guy, this cover overlay, absolutely within our cover div. So I've gone ahead and did that, and I kind of wanted to walk you through the changes that I made to make this work a little bit better. So if we go to our CSS file here, I've undid my changes, so I'm gonna hit redo as I go, and we'll see the different steps. So, so I added this cover overlay class, and I did position absolute in bottom 50 pixels. So the cover overlay is right here in the div, and I want to show the changes. If we do position absolute and then bottom 50 pixels, and then we show where that's at. You can see that we've positioned it absolutely in this cover div, and we've positioned it from the bottom, and we've moved it up 50 pixels. Moving it up 50 pixels is to create this white space here that will be used for those extra links. So we've taken cover overlay, we've made it absolutely positioned, and we moved it up from the bottom 50 pixels. I think there's a couple of extra steps that I did here. Okay, I also set width 100%, so it's going to make it the full width. And then basically, you know, as you'll see, let's see, let me undo that. Save so we can see where we're at. So now obviously the position of our, you know, profile photo and all of this are all wonky because they're still positioned relative. But now our cover overlay is a lot more properly positioned. And we don't need to move each element within it as drastically because we've positioned cover overlay kind of properly. Like, you know, you can see that this element is like where it should be now. It makes a lot more sense for it to be there. And now this more stuff here for the rest of our HTML content isn't pushed down so much because we don't have that big empty space that was saved for that cover overlay element. So it's just a matter of repositioning these items up here. So we went ahead and did that top 30 now. So it's not quite as drastic for the profile image. I ended up making this a little bit different. Profile 9, or profile name, is the position from the top. It's moved 110 pixels from the top. Profile buttons is 130. So now, okay, there's one more step that we have to do, and I'll show you this as well. I did a little bit of styling on the links. Just kind of going through the different changes that I did here. I'll walk you through these changes here in a second. I'm trying to get to a change that I had to make. Okay, so on our cover div, which the cover overlay is positioned absolutely within, we changed the position to relative. This is kind of an important trick. It's not a trick, But to be really precise about position absolute will position the div relative to its parent div, but it's not always the direct parent. It's the direct parent that's positioned relatively. Otherwise, it goes all the way to the body. So by default, position absolute will sort of position based on the body. So if we change cover to position relative, that's all we have to do is change it to position relative. We don't have to move it anywhere. We just want it to be treated a little bit differently. If we do that, we're going to see these end up kind of working out now how we want. So to kind of say that again in a different way, anytime you want to position a div absolutely within another div, you should take its parent div and make it position relative so that it will work properly. Otherwise, you'll kind of end up with some funky stuff. So now we've got this looking pretty good. And to walk through real quick, let me make sure. Okay, yeah, that's current state. So I also took this extra links div, which is where I have my, it's right here where I have these buttons. So first of all, I use a bootstrap element for these. So if you go to button groups in the components, basically you see it kind of makes these buttons that are sort of grouped together, really handy. So copy this. But then also there's justified button groups. So that will create these button groups that take up all the space available to them, basically. Really handy. That's basically what we want. We want, you know, if you look at Facebook, you've got these, you know, these are sort of like buttons, you know, the whole background changes. And there's an uneven number of them, but they're all just kind of like equally spaced out to give them enough space. You can see that that's kind of pretty much what we've accomplished. So going back to the HTML, looking at these, we did a row for this. And remember we talked about this Wednesday. We did the 6 column and we offset it by 3. Remember we've got 12 columns to work with in each row. So we've basically made it half of the width, but then we have offset it about 50%. Well, not 50%, but we've put it in the middle, basically. And then we've got all of these buttons, and it doesn't matter how many buttons we have, but because we've put this button group justified class in there, they will be equally spaced out by default, and take up the full width that we've given it. So really, really nice. I also added a last button class to the last button. You can actually do that with CSS, but I wanted to kind of show you the non-fancy way of doing it would be to just add a last button class, and we did that for the borders. So the way that I handled the borders, so I had to do some things with the height. So I took the child div of extra links and made it height 100%, and then I took my button group. My mouse stopped working for some reason. There we go. I took the button group and made it height inherit, which is going to also make it 100%. And then I did the same with the links inside of extra links. I made them 100%. So that's going to give us this full, you know, the background changes and it takes up the full space, as well as the borders, the left and right borders, extending the entire height of the div that we have available to us. So then on these buttons, I made them border none, border radius 0, and I added border left to them. If I, you know, did not do this, if I just leave it with the default, then let's comment this out too. With just the default button look, you know, they've got the curved corners, and also these borders kind of double up in here because they've each got border left and border right, so the borders look kind of too thick. It's also got border bottom and border top, which we don't really want. So we fix that by setting border none to kind of reset it, border radius to 0, which is going to take out the curved corners. And then we just add border left, and then on the last one we also want border right. So if we didn't do this with the border right, we've got border left on all of these buttons, so they've got a nice border in between them. Then the last button doesn't have a border on its right. So the last one we also want border right on. So I'm going to leave styling these actual buttons up to you guys. I think that you can, change the color and change the background color on hover and that kind of thing. If you really wanted to get fancy, you could include the Bootstrap JavaScript as well, also in your head, and you could do a drop down like this. You don't necessarily need to. Could also do this little indentation here for your active page, but that's getting pretty fancy. So we're looking pretty good. The next steps would be to add, a div for this intro, as well as like a div for the status post. So I'll probably do another video sometime soon to kind of go through those. But we've got a pretty good start with our new columns here at the bottom. So for instance, if we just went ahead and added a div to that, so let's here do like a div, let's give it an ID, what are we going to call this? This is like the info div, I guess. So we'll give it an ID of info. Let's see. It's got like this is maybe like a heading 2 of intro, and it's also got this icon. So if we go to icons, I think we just search for world or earth. I think I used it here at the top. Globe. Copy that. Put that here. Actually, let's just do this, like H2, have that icon within the H2 and then info. Or no, it was intro. Yeah, intro. Okay, getting there. We also need to change the background and kind of give it some padding and stuff. So let's do that. Let's say background color FFF. Let's see what Facebook uses for this border radius. It's actually something we're going to want to apply to everything. A lot of, we've got border radius here, we've got border here. There's a lot of curved corners. Let's see, this is just insane. They use an OL for all of these items here. I don't really understand why they would use an ordered list. Facebook's just kind of crazy. And then these are each list items. I don't think that's very semantic. It's not an ordered list. I mean, I guess in theory, if you say that this, div is first and this div is second or something like that, I guess you can call that ordered. Anyway, kind of crazy that that's how they do it. If we look at this LI, it should have border somewhere. Maybe it's the div. Here you go. Border radius is 3 pixels. You can actually just copy this, honestly. We want to apply that lots of places, so let's do this. Let's go like up to the top. Well, we're down here. Let's create a new class of like border radius and paste these things here. Now all we have to do is in this div also give it a class border radius. So that helps us out because anywhere that we need to apply border radius, any kind of div, we can just use this class. It'll make things a lot easier for us. For instance, let's see, like, where else might we use that? Like on the, really it's just on the bottom of this. We wouldn't want it on the top as well, so that might not be a good place. But all of these extra little divs here, we're going to be using that. So that's handy to have, just kind of as a utility class. So then let's see, on our intro, set the background color. That's probably good for now. Oh, we'll also need some padding and stuff. Okay. Let's see here. Go on D4. Then info. Don't see our, no, intro. Info. Okay. We obviously need to space this out a little bit. So I gave this div, by the way, just to show kind of the HTML for that next section. So I closed the cover div here, and then I created a new div with class row and an ID of main content to create this 4-8 column layout for kind of the main, you know, our photos and info on the left, and then our posts kind of in the center column. So div ID info, got this H2. So on our main content, I think I've given it, nope, I don't have that yet. I'm going to give this like a margin top of like 20 pixels or so. And then on our info, we also want to give it a padding. Let's try like 10 pixels. And then let's also style maybe like all H2s. We want them to be a little bit smaller. And also, so the span's going to be colored differently. Let's definitely make this smaller. They use 16 pixels, so let's try that. They also did font weight normal, so we'll do that as well. We don't want it to be super bold or anything. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Okay, let's get in there. Let's do maybe like half of the padding though. Or let's double check. Okay, so it's actually on the heading. Headings by default have quite a bit of margin top. You can see it's margin top 20 pixels. That's kind of a bootstrap style. We want it to be a little more properly set up in there. So let's also say margin 0 pixels. It's a little bit of an annoying feature of Bootstrap that I've run into a lot at least. That looks a lot better. It's a lot more kind of squared up in there. We probably want to make it, well, that's pretty good. If you really wanted to get fancy, you can try and do that kind of, basically change the color of the icon to white, and then make a large circle around it. You could use, there's probably a glyphicon for making a large circle. We just search circle. It's probably filled circle. maybe. You can also use just a span and use border radius with a really high number. I don't see an actual circle here. Maybe, yeah, no, if you're using, some of you guys have talked about that you're using Font Awesome. With Font Awesome, you can do a colored background around your icon. It probably also lets you do circles. Actually, here's how we can do circles. There's a, where is that? If we look at images, maybe over here in CSS, maybe helper, there's a way to do classes. Yeah, we can do it with an image if we really wanted to. That might be what I'm thinking of. Let's not mess with that. If you wanted to do it, I would use an image and download an image. You know, it can just be like a square colored image or something like that, and use that. That might be the easiest way to kind of create that circle. So, okay, so we've got our intro here. We're going to want a status post box up here. I would kind of ignore this little prompt thing. So we can do another div. We're going to do kind of the same idea here within our Meme 8. Change this to new post is the ID. We're going to leave this border radius class. We won't use an H2. Let's see, so we want some sort of a UL. We could even use they don't behave quite the same as buttons. But using buttons just without a hover style might work for this. Let's grab the same code that we use for these buttons, the button group. Let's copy this and put this here at the top, but we only need 3 buttons. We can also take out this button group justified because we're not going to want that. Let's also make these, I think there's an extra small class for buttons. No, that's in the CSS. Again, you kind of have to flip back and forth between the CSS page and the components page quite a bit. If we go to buttons, look at sizes. Yeah, there's a button XS. Let's use that. These also will have a glyphicon. So let's just do this for now. Space after it. Let's see what that looks like. Let's also make the background of that white. So we've got new post. Let's do this too. So remember in CSS you can take multiple selectors and separate them with a comma, and it will target those multiple things. I think we talked about that in the way back when we first talked about CSS selectors, but we haven't actually used it. This is a really nice way to use that. So we want to take this style and apply it to multiple. We're going to have lots of different divs on our page. You know, like the intro box, the photos box, each, you know, post on our wall is going to need the same style with the background and the padding. So we can apply that same style to multiple divs by using the comma to add multiple IDs to target, or multiple selectors. So let's see what that looks like. Okay. It's not bad. It's a little bit, we can kind of fix these buttons pretty easily. We want them to not have any border and be spaced out a little bit. Well, I guess really they have all but the last one has a border right. So we can do that. Let's do, well, we don't actually want to use that same class because then it will, let's do, what did we use like last button? Let's do first button here. And so now in our CSS, let's do a new post button, or what is it? Yeah, BTN group. And then actually, are those A's? Yeah. We want to target the actual A. And let's say border none. Let's also do hover and background. I wonder if that will do it. Go back here. So they've lost their border, and yeah, hovering doesn't do anything now, so that's good. Because this literally doesn't do anything when you hover. Yeah, okay. That's good. We're getting there. So we need to change the color, the background color of that whole UL. So let's do that here, like button group. Let's see what color that is. Is it X? Okay. Got that. Let's add, border bottom. And let's see what color. One nice thing with this color meter too, it gives you like a really zoomed in view over here. So you can use that to really get precise. Okay. Got that. Let's also, well, let's see how this is looking. We also want to maybe space it out a little bit. Okay, we're getting there. Why is that on hover that? It's kind of weird. Let's see, we also, let's do width 30%. Oh, that's why we've set our, that's our buttons. Let's also do okay, good. Let's add some padding. Let's just do it all around. Let's do like 10. Okay. And now we actually want to get rid of the padding on this particular. So maybe it wasn't such a great idea to add this here, but we still want the background color. So here, let's do and we'll still add padding bottom. What is it? 10. Yeah. We still want padding left and right. For the rest of, well, yeah, I changed my mind. Let's leave that and let's do this a little bit differently, I guess. What is the best way to do that? Got this div down here. Got this button group. Because if we take the padding off of this, I guess that's probably getting us pretty close. We're just going to have to, yeah. Let's go back to that. And just do padding bottom. We'll just have to add padding, you know, to the actual content, the div that we use for actual content. So that's looking pretty good. Let's actually do on our button group. Oh, we added. Let's add this padding to the actual button group instead of the buttons. Let's do like 20 pixels. Yeah, that's a little overkill. Maybe like 12. Okay, that looks good. And let's also add some margin. Yeah, it's getting pretty close. Let's add like a margin right, or on the actual buttons themselves. 10 pixels. And then let's also do border left. Let's do the same color as we did on the border bottom. Then we also need, is that right? Let's see. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Let's do two things. Let's do this. Let's also do a margin left. And then let's do target that first button. And do border none. Because otherwise, you can see this right here, there's a border left. We only want the borders in between them. And we added the padding left just to space them out properly with the border. So if we refresh now, there we go. Well, it's still kind of weird. We're getting there though. We've only got them in between each one. Look at these. Look at the link. Oh, you know what it is? It's the margin. Margin collapsed. That's why it didn't quite. Let's do padding instead. Okay, cool. That's looking pretty good. So now we've got these buttons. They're properly spaced out. They've got borders and a separator between them. We can also change the color. We're not going to be able to get these colored icons, unfortunately. Looks like the first one is gray, and the rest are, because this one's active, and the rest are blue. Handily, we've also got that first button already, so we can do color there. Then rest there. Okay. They're also probably bold or something. Yeah. Let's look at the font weight. Font weight bold. Okay, cool. It's looking good. That's really all we've got. We need to actually add the form. So for this form, you're going to want to probably use text area or maybe an input. Because I think as you do the inspector, oops, as you can get new lines and stuff. So maybe use like a text area, but you'll use a text area, but you'll want to get rid of the border and the background color for that. So let's go ahead and try that real quick. I'm not sure how long this video is at so far, but trying to help you guys out as much as I can. Let's do form. Well, let's see if Bootstrap has some default form styling, I believe. Let's see, components, CSS forms. So it's got just like a form group div. Can do that, I guess. I don't think there's, I think that'll work for us. So we've got form, and then let's do text area, ID equals post or status. Let's use placeholder too. And what's on your mind? Close our div in our form. That's good. See how we're looking. Okay. Basically, all we have to do, it looks like, is get rid of the border. See if this works. Might be more to it. No? Wonder. I don't know what that little guy is. The little resize. I'm sure there's a way to get rid of that. CSS remove text area resize. Actually, I think it's a HTML property. Text area tricks. Let's do this. Background. Placeholder. Glow. Remove resize handle. Resize none. Awesome. Okay, that's good. We've got, I mean, that's pretty much what we need. We just need to move it around. We can add this little image here. So we can use the Bootstrap image classes for that. Use the kind of the thumbnail look. Because I think it has that little border. Well, no, it's just got a border around it. let's just do an image. Let's do that. Alt equals profile thumbnail. Class equals, let's do the same profile, because it's your profile image thumbnail is basically what that is. So nope, wrong page. Page just looks so similar to real Facebook. I can't even. Okay, there we go. It's a little too big. Let's do 50. It's even a little big. Well, maybe it's like 40. And let's do some real basic styling. Border, do gray, and we'll want to position a little bit. We also want to float left, and then we also want our, I guess that's actually a status, that is a text area. Float left. See if that's getting us a little closer. Okay, that's good. We just need to kind of position it. Let's see. Yeah, so let's do this. Let's kind of do a wrapper div around these things. ID equals post form. Indent these. And now we can say on this post form, padding 10 pixels or whatever we want. Okay, we want to move the text area over just a little bit. And also remember we talked about if you have a div where all of its child elements are floated, which they probably won't be in the end, but you have to do something special to get it to not be treated as 0 height. So if we go back to, let's see, that's like our post form. See how the height is, you know, it's not 0, it's probably got, yeah, it's got some padding in there. So remember what we do for that is we do overflow, auto, we do width 100%. It's just kind of a little trick to get that to work properly. This is looking really good. Let's see, this text area, we basically want, let's just use position relative and do left 10 pixels and top -10. Yeah. It's pretty, it's technically kind of centered. That's pretty close though. Also, I think that there is a slight border around here. It's pretty light. I wonder if we can, yeah. It's a little bit lighter than what we've got. So let's go to our profile thumbnail. It's also got a border radius, but let's do that with a class. because we've already got that border radius. Let's see, and then we needed post form to have the overflow auto and width in order for it to work properly. Again, once we add some more, the rest of the elements, they probably won't all be floated, but for now, we need those to be floated. In status, we're going to do position relative left 10 pixels to move it over from the left offset, and then top offset negative 10 pixels to move it up. Let's make sure that that was all that we needed. Cool. It's looking good. We've got our little profile image, and we've got our post status here. So from here, you just need to make sure you need to kind of do this line here along the bottom, and then put your, you can maybe use an HR for that, or a border bottom. Yeah, I would probably put, yeah, let's just do, I'm just going to end up doing this entire assignment for you guys if you've stuck out watching this video for this long. Let's do border bottom. Oh, 1 solid. Actually, I think that was 2. I'm looking at it with this. Yeah, well, no, it's just 1. It's kind of hard to tell, but. And then we would put our actual button.
Are you doing that or not?
Put it. Yeah, I'm still recording. This would actually put it. Yeah, so you actually want to do it a little bit differently, because we need our, well, that's not true. We can put our button here, and then we can position it down below. Or actually, we wouldn't actually need a submit button for this. We can just use a normal button, and we'll put it down below here. Let's do button primary, and then do that, post, something like that. See where we're at. Okay, now all we just really need to do is pull this over to the right and style it to look like this. So, and probably make it small. So I think we can do like button small. I think there's actually a pull right class in Bootstrap that will automatically do the float for you. Okay, yeah, that's good. Again, we've run into the floating an overflow issue now within the new post div. So if we also put those overflow auto with 100%, should work to save. Oh, I did that incorrectly. We don't want that on our A. We want that on just new post. Okay, that's good. We'd also, maybe change the color. We can do the color of all of those primary. We can use that primary button. Well, I guess there's not really any other buttons, but we can change the color of, usually up at the very top of my CSS is where I want to put like, styles that are going to be applied all over the place, just because it's a little bit easier to find, even above the body maybe. Do btn primary and change Let's also make this, again, extra small. Post. Okay. And let's add some margin around it to kind of space it out. Let's see. Status, and here we want like a post button. So we'll have to add that ID. Margin 10 pixels. Then we add the ID. Okay, that's looking good. So we've got, we'll have to, obviously you'll want to change these with appropriate icons and the appropriate names for each different post type. We've got a placeholder, what's on your mind, you know, got a post button. So you want to add the other button as well. You might actually use, well, you wouldn't really want a button group, probably just have 2 different buttons here, and use the drop down one here. But yeah, that's pretty much good with your actual post dialog. So then after that, make sure you add 3 real posts. At least one of them needs an image. And then you'll need to add obviously the intro information there on the left, and then do like the photo thumbnails and do the friends. So I'll probably try and go over those on Monday. I'll try and run through some stuff with you as well, and maybe I'll probably do it ahead of time and then just kind of walk you through what I did, just in case you're still stuck on Monday with doing the, you know, the photos thumbnails and the friends thumbnails. I'll kind of show you how I accomplish those, just to kind of help put you on the right track if you're still struggling. But I think we've got a pretty good amount done. So good luck working over the weekend. Feel free to contact me on Slack or send me an email if you're struggling with anything. And myself or one of the TAs will jump in and try and help you out. So, all right, thanks guys.